So in this first class, I want to share with you some concepts that are important as we go through SQL or understand how to write queries. I believe that as developers or analysts, it's important to understand the concept of metrics and dimensions. So we're going to start with looking at metrics and dimensions, what they are, why are they important in our course. I'm going to start with metrics. What is a metric? Any number that you can compute or aggregate in any way, that's what a metric is. But a metric has no meaning by itself. So if someone tells you, I have a number, 4,000, what does 4,000 mean? It could be dollars, it could be just in units, but it doesn't have any meaning unless you explain it by dimension. So a dimension is anything that gives our metrics meaning. So in the example of the 4,000, I could say I made 4,000 from selling a product. Now that has a meaning. I made 4,000 in the city of Los Angeles. I made 4,000 on January 1. So my date could be a dimension. My product could be a dimension. My city could be a dimension. The reason why dimensions are important is if you're asked a question from the business side, assuming you're a developer and a business person asks you a question about data, say revenue is down. The first thing that comes to your head in terms of looking at it is, what can you explain revenue by? Is it the product that was purchased? Is it the price of the product? All those elements are dimensions that would help you better explain that metric. So that's why I believe that the concept of metrics and dimensions are really core to your roles as developers or analysts. So in our SQL class, we're going to be considering a specific business. It's an e-commerce company. I think it's important for us to understand how the business processes work, because the understanding of the business model will enable us to answer questions as we look at the data later. So for this business, they advertise online on Google, on Bing or Yahoo. So people come in through these ads that the company has on Google or Bing or these other websites. They also have people that already know the website who just come in directly by typing out the URL of the website, and that's how they come to the website. But when all these users come, they land on the product page. When they do land on the product page, they could be interested in seeing something. If they don't find anything of interest, they exit the website. In other cases, they see a product that they like and they purchase. When they finish making their purchase, they exit the website. For some other users, when they finish making their purchase, they browse other pages. Maybe they saw a link to another item that they might be interested in. So they browse the other pages and eventually they exit. In some other cases, they find an item they're interested in. They go to that product page, look at that item. If they like it, they purchase, and eventually they exit the website. In other cases, they browse other pages, they don't find what they're looking for, and they just exit the website. This is the general flow of a user as it relates to this company, the Smartclothing company that we'll be looking at. Now, why is this important? This is important as we consider what I just mentioned to you about metrics and dimensions. For instance, assuming the question is that revenue went up and we're trying to explain it, what we should be asking ourselves is, what is the metric that we want to use to explain this purchase event? We can say the metric is revenue. Okay, the question now is, why is revenue up or why is revenue down? We have to explain revenue's movement up and down by the dimensions that we can find. The first dimension will be here in the event of this purchase. What is the price of the product? What product is it? What category does the product belong to? Who are the people that purchase the product? Are they from Google? Are they from Bing? If we have information about their demographics, then we can say, what age groups do they belong to? All these dimensions help us give meaning to that one metric, revenue. And by slicing it up and down, we can tell why revenue is up or why revenue is down. In the case of product, for instance, we can say what product is it they're purchasing. Perhaps we have less of a specific product being purchased this week versus last week, and maybe that's why revenue is down. It could be because people from Facebook usually don't buy much, and we stopped buying more traffic from Facebook. It could be the day of the week. Maybe it was a Monday versus a Sunday, and maybe that's why revenue is down. But you use all those dimensions that you can come up with. Mainly one, attributes of the product. Those are all dimensions. Attributes of the user, where they're from, who they are. Those are all dimensions. And those are the things you use to explain the metric. So the more of an understanding you have of this concept, the easier it would be for you to support different teams. So if somebody comes to you and asks you, can you provide me data on revenue by day? You should already know that, wait, might they want to see it by product? Would they want to see the revenue by traffic source? Would they want to see the revenue by the price types? You can ask questions because you already know all the dimensions that are available for you to explain your metrics. So let's jump into the benefits of looking at this business model in this manner. First of all, it opens our eyes to opportunities within the business. When we understand the business model, it becomes easy for us to come up with questions of our own. What products are selling the most? What states are our customers from? Maybe we can better increase our marketing efforts to focus on those states, and the states where we don't really have much opportunities, we can find out a business model that will work for that state. We can ask questions around what should we focus on in terms of marketing. Where do we spend our money? Is it on Google? Is it on Facebook? Which one is producing the most yield for us? We can talk about the percentage of our transactions that are over $50. We can look at the buying patterns of our users. How much of a value do they spend in terms of dollar value? Do they spend on purchases? Do they spend a lot on purchases? What number of purchases do we have that are X amounts in size? All the questions that you're asking is driven by your understanding of the metrics you're looking at and the dimensions that you can use to explain them. So without being an employee of the company, you can go through their flow, be it that of their website or be it a video game that you play through, and you can already understand what questions you might want to ask around specific metrics that you've come up with. Be it people land on the product page. What percentage of people on a given day land on the product page? Is that the same every day? Is that the same for all the product pages? Is that the same from where the customers come from? Be it Facebook, be it Google? Are we converting the same users from different sources to purchase? You can easily come up with questions of your own without even being an analyst. But if you're a report developer, that's what even makes you more important or relevant where you are in your company. So now that we know why the business model is important, now let's specifically consider all the elements for the Smartclothing dataset. So the fields you're going to see in the dataset are mostly the ones here. We have the customer ID, and that's the unique identifier for every customer. We have the create date, that is the date that a customer became a member of this website. The event date is the date of an actual purchase. The product ID is a unique identifier to know this product is milk, so we give it product ID 1. The revenue is the actual amount of purchase that was made. The traffic source would be a way for us to know where the user came from. Is it Google? Is it Facebook? Is it Yahoo? The product name is the actual product that was purchased. And of course, the city, state, postal code, and region are all attributes of the user, so we know exactly where the customer is from. So across all the data sets we'll be looking at, these are the main fields that you come across. And I think it's important to have an understanding of this as we dive into the data and start running queries. So in summary, as analysts or developers, you have to make sure you know the business you're working in. You understand how things work. Why? Because it exposes you to what the user's experience is. You know how they're interacting with your product or your service. And you know, as they go through their journey through your product or through your service, you know the touch points that will shed light on opportunities for the company to improve, be it conversion, be it revenue, be it conversion rate, whatever it is. It becomes very clear where the opportunities lie for the business. Another thing that is important is whatever the company is that you are, you should know what the key dimensions and metrics are. You have to understand additional data points that you might want to suggest to capture based off of you drawing out the framework to know what the flow is from the time a customer comes to your website or visits your product in any way, and then from the point where they leave. You should have an idea of what the touch points are, what the dimensions are, what the metrics are, what additional data points you can suggest for them to start capturing if they're not capturing it yet. So for me, I think this is very important. It's very key. Before we even start looking at data, before we start writing SQL, we have to understand the business we're working with. And I think you should apply the same concept in your own roles, wherever you are today. Now we're going to jump into Excel and take a closer look at each one of these fields that we just talked about, see what the data looks like, and start working on importing those from Excel into SQL so we can start writing SQL scripts.